Another hot day across America. I know in Denver, we're going to hit another triple degree day, which is unusual. And they said elsewhere it's all hot too. So, and talking about hot, of course, today's discussion is focused on recruiting. And what better way to hear about how to be a successful recruiter than to talk to a couple of agents. So you'll see our two guests here. I'll introduce them in a moment. And then, as always, I'm joined today with Rob Sutherland of the Pro Broker Agency. Rob's our partner that provides the tailored, personalized recruiting calls to your list of targeted agents. Rob,
hey, Paul.
How are things?
I'm good, man. Looking forward to it. Another busy day here, Vancouver, BC, Canada. We got the sun out here. It's gorgeous. It's lovely.
Perfect. Yeah, we should have a good podcast today. I'm excited about
Absolutely.
it.
As
As you can see, also joining us, we have two very special distinguished guests. The first one is Christina Maldonado. She's a stellar agent with Keller Williams up in New York City. And we have Eddie Rodriguez. He's a top producer here in my home city and state of Denver, Colorado, and he's with the Realty One Group. Welcome, both of you, and I appreciate you joining us.
Thanks for having me.
So before we get into some introductions, and questions, let me talk about the format today. So what we hope to learn from our two distinguished guests here is what approaches work, and maybe more importantly, what does not work, what pisses them off when they are trying to be lured away by managing brokers into another company. So Rob and I plan on asking, a couple questions each, and then we're going to open it up to the rest of you. And I believe we'll just have everyone type it into the chat box. And assuming I have some IT skills, or Rob, I don't know, do you see the chat box? You can.
I saw someone just gave a shout out to Canada. So, hey, thank you.
All right. So that'll be the format. But first, let's hear a little bit from our two distinguished panelists. Christina, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
All right, Paul. So my name's Christina, and I sell real estate in New York City. It's amazing right now. It's very hot with humidity. Our humidity is out of control. Our market's definitely one of a kind. I think people who've been in the industry for quite some time, they have a good grasp on what real estate is like in general. But when you come to New York City, it's a completely different ballgame. And I actually am from Denver, Colorado. So I've sold real estate in Denver, but I moved to New York about 11 years ago, and I'm a city girl at heart. So I just love dealing with the hustle and bustle and the New York City life. It's the best ever. So I've been in real estate for, like I said, plus 10 years, been with a couple different firms, not even a handful, I think 3 firms in my entire career. So very loyal. I love what I do. I love it. I wake up every morning and just love what I do. Love working with people, and I'm excited to answer some questions here.
Right. Thank you so much again for joining us today. So,
you're welcome.
Eddie, let's hear about you.
I've been pretty much here in Colorado since I was 4, so been here. I feel like I'm a native. I've been in the real estate game for 14 years and some change. I've kind of gone to several different brokerages. I've started 2 of my own, had some failed partnerships and whatnot, but I ended up coming back to the first managing broker that I started with. The real estate here in Colorado is hot. We're under 2,000 or 2,500 listings, which has been historic for our market since the 80s. And since we've been tracking the MLS, depending on what kind of asset class you're looking at, it's and geographic. I think like New York's got their own thing going on. In Denver, what we're seeing is something similar.
Right. Yeah. Well, welcome both of you. So, let's get into some questions. Let's find out what works and doesn't work. So, Rob, why don't you kick it off here?
Sounds good. Yeah, for sure. I mean, I got some pretty basic questions. Obviously, you guys are both agents that have been in the business for a while. I think that you've probably received a phone call from another broker owner or something like that. And they vary, they're different, or maybe you've got some outreach from another broker owner, obviously, over time. And I'm curious, maybe we can start with Christina. You know, what what kind of questions, if we were going to call you and talk about your business and ask you some questions that you would like to hear, what would those be? Like, what would be a good example of something that is part of your business that you would like someone to find more, you know, interesting? What would be a good question to ask?
Yeah, so I think that's a good question. No pun intended.
Yes.
So I think for me, especially in our market, the terminology used is extremely important.
Yes.
In New York City, we're not realtors. So we don't, we're not realtors. And when I get a phone call, a solicitation phone call, if they refer to us as a realtor, or, hey, just calling to check on your business, how's real estate going? You're a realtor in New York. I know automatically that's, maybe a scam or spam call. So for one, just get the terminology. Yes, yes. So I think the most important is getting the terminology right when you're going to call a New York City real estate agent. But a question that I would like to be asked is, how do you get your leads? What are you doing to generate business? Are you doing this on a consistent basis? Are you, touching your database? Ask me how I'm generating business, where I'm getting business from. And I think an important question too is like, what's your follow-up plan? What do you do to follow up with these leads that come through? Maybe also touching on knowing what I've done in my, in my portfolio, maybe current listings that I have. Ask me how those listings are going. Ask me, how did you get this listing? Where are you at with this listing? What type of marketing have you done to this listing? Ask personal questions that only I can answer because I know about the listing from start to finish. I know about the client. I know how I generated the listing, how it was procured. So I think detailed questions with the right terminology would be a good start when calling me on the phone.
Do you want a job consulting for Pro Broker Agency? Because that's the best answer I've ever heard.
I'll keep it in mind. I'll keep it in mind, Rob.
That's fantastic. Yeah, absolutely. That's great. I hope everybody heard that. That's like the best notes I've heard in a long time. Really getting personal with the outreach, right? Like finding out more about your business and knowing about it before the call, right? Like products like Paul's got with the Realty Connection software and things like that we don't need to talk about now, but can help identify things like that and find out what you're working on, which is fantastic.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Essentially, it's kind of like, an interview. When any person is going for an interview, you do your research before. You Google the website, you Google the employees, you go to LinkedIn, do all of that work before you call me. And it just makes the call between you and I a lot more personal. It makes it a lot easier. The conversation flows, it's organic. We have topics to talk about, not just what's on the script. And trust me, I've done a ton of script practice in my days. So I can tell when you're reading a script. I usually, if they call, I'll flip it around and run a script on them. And they're like, I throw them off. So just, do some research before you call me. Don't waste your time nor my time. We're busy people in this day and age. So, have some respect for when you're calling.
It's simple as product knowledge, really, right? If you're calling to sell the internet to somebody, you should know the speed of the internet and all the products and services available with that. Same with doing a recruiting call like that. That's probably the best. Anyway, sorry, Eddie. I don't know. I mean,
Eddie's going to deliver. He even have a better answer. You wait.
I agree with a lot of the things that she's saying. Me personally, I think that depending on where you are in your career, like as I was early in my career, I was more open to those calls. Whereas now, I even if you're a nice person, I don't need to hear your situation, right? I came to join this company for loyalty. I actually came to with the same broker owner, and my kind of career has led me to, I did 2 brokerages myself, so I'm in the position where I kind of been there, and I just want to just focus on myself. So not that I don't, I guess appreciate those calls, but at this point in my career, I'm not too open to them, but I do agree with her as know more about me, because you can definitely tell when it's a script, and that is an immediate turnoff. And as a newer agent, definitely trying to offer ways to improve the business, or offering teams and ways to get better and do more volume. I think that was something that I wanted to hear when I was earlier in my career.
Awesome. Yeah, for sure. I mean, and then maybe Christina, I know you kind of maybe got into it a little bit, but what would be some things that would be questions you would not want to be asked? Things that you would not resonate with you, that would completely turn you off if it was in person, they were on a call, or if you ended up meeting someone at, a meeting or something like that, where you're at, a real estate board event or something, and they come up and start chatting with you. What would be something that you'd be like, I'm not joining that office?
Yeah. I think, even if I wasn't an experienced agent, just, fresh out the gate, I think coming in with no knowledge, or
Right,
even New York City, we don't work off of MLS. So I have no idea how the MLS works. We work off a very different system. And so approaching me either in person or an event or something, I'm like, oh, how's the MLS? Are you serious? I have no idea what that is. Like, at least know who I am, or, if not, if I'm a new agent, you're coming up to me, at least have a couple different options different scenarios that you can play around. I feel like that was a little bit of a roundabout answer, but I think
no.
In short, would just, have some knowledge on the real estate game, where we're at in general, across the board. It doesn't have to be New York City. I understand not every recruiter is going to know exactly about New York City, but have some knowledge about what's happening in the market with, the Fed's increasing interest rates a couple years from now, where we're at with interest rates at this point in time. Like, have some basic knowledge of real estate, especially during, coming off the pandemic. Have some knowledge about where we're at, where we're going to be in the next 60 days, how we're going to get there. Have a little bit of knowledge. If you come and have a conversation with me, don't sound completely illiterate. Like, know what you're talking about a little bit.
I like that. Love it. Eddie, anything to add to that?
No, not really. I think it's, I also do some commercial real estate, actually a little bit more these days. And so some of that kind of recruiting happens a little bit more organic. But to me, one of the most important things, even when I was doing my own brokerages, it's the environment, it's the people, it's the energy that's in the office. And so even the times that I gave those recruiters an opportunity in my earlier career, I think that was something that I looked out for, even going to the office and kind of seeing the energy in the office, seeing the agents, maybe asking, how available the managing broker is, asking those kind of questions as, are they really who they say they are, and things like that. Because I have been through several brokerages, and they promise you the moon in the sky, and once you're there, it's not what it appears. So for me, it's the energy and the kind of how the environment, and I like kind of smaller offices. So that was what I was kind of looking for in my earlier days.
I think I agree with Eddie 100% when it comes to energy. Being in this industry, it's sales essentially, and so you have to have that energy. The moment you meet someone, whether you're a recruiter, whether you're another agent, a new agent, a seasoned agent, a managing broker, whoever it is, you need to have that energy. And I think that's important for newer agents too, especially a recruiter coming to meet with a newer agent. They need to learn how to create that energy. They need to learn how to spark that conversation. But the recruiter should be doing that same thing as well. They're recruiting agents, at the end of the day. So have some energy, have some enthusiasm, like know how to be salesy without being too salesy.
Exactly.
Good point.
Exactly. Love it. Awesome. Paul, you've got some questions coming up?
Sure. So, obviously when you get a call or an email or a text from a managing broker, it's not like, boom, I'm going to head on over there and, have this recruiting interview. So there's some farming that has to happen during the process. So
multiple touches.
Multiple touches. So, in your careers, and I guess earlier on in your careers, what is a typical time for an agent to finally make up their mind that says, you know what, I am going to finally sit down with this managing broker, and I am going to get a feel for the office and the people in there, because that's not going to happen typically from the get-go. So initially they're going to be reaching out to you and, maybe texting you, checking in on you. So how do they go about that process to kind of keep you engaged without overly hounding you to come to their office? And then what is the time you think that it takes to finally get that in-person meeting where you're having a serious conversation about moving offices?
Yeah.
So Eddie, let's
So-
start with you. Let's start with you today on this question.
Yes, I think in my personal career, it was about every 3 years. So when I first started in real estate, I think I had different goals than I do now. You know, there was points in my career where I was all about volume, right? And it was just like, you know, like Subway, you know, we had our system that just went, you know, you take care of this, everybody takes care of this, and so forth. Now I kind of focus more on quality versus quantity and working with less clients, but, you know, doing that. But it seemed about every 3 years, I kind of wanted to, you know, increase my business. So that I guess that's my answer. Every 3 years is typically when I made a move. And it's because I either I went from a solo agent to creating a team. And then I saw that the team environment was, I think, where I got the most experience. I closed the most deals. I got the most experience in the game, I guess, in the industry. And then after that, you know, I from a team wanted to do my own brokerage and so forth. So yeah, about every 3 years, I was trying to duplicate or increase my volume or my improve my career in some way or another. And that's when I was more willing to hear from recruiters.
So looking at
Christina?
some data, really quickly, if you're looking at the data on Eddie's career there on something and you saw that he was trending upwards, that might be a good time to reach out.
Yeah, that's a good point. I
Christine?
mean, how does a managing broker identify an agent that might be ready to move, right? You know, whether it's 3 years, whether it's increasing production, maybe they've changed their listing portfolio from downtown condos to suburbia. I mean, how do you figure out the timing? So when I call Eddie or I call Christina, I'm like, they're open, their mind is open at this stage of their career to move.
I personally, when I was recruiting agents myself, I would look for volume in agents. So I would look at agents that were closing, you know, less than 12 deals a year, and they were doing that for a couple of years. And I figured, you know, if I can show them and give them an incentive to work in an environment where they can double or triple that income, that was the kind of agent that I was targeting. And I feel like I was that type of agent that was more open to hearing from a recruiter early on in my career. Is when I wanted to go from that, you know, 8 to 12 deal range to really turn it up, you know, to 24, 36 or whatnot.
Nice.
Christina, yeah, there were a couple questions in there that you can reply to.
Yeah. So I think the New York City market is, again, I can't emphasize how different it is when it comes to real estate. I don't think there's a way for, and you guys probably know better than I do, but when it comes to recruiting, there's no like timeline, there's no metric that recruiters have to look up our stats or to look up how much volume we've produced or look up our numbers. New York City doesn't track that, or at least it's not like public knowledge. So it's interesting because for me, I kind of found at the beginning of my career, I wanted to go with a brokerage firm, one who had a good reputation in the city. You know, Keller Williams at the time was more of a suburban brand. So believe it or not, a lot of people in the city were like, Keller Williams, is that a person? They had no clue who it was. So at the beginning, it was just like, oh, maybe this isn't the right firm for me. However, I was new agent. I had some sales experience. So I wanted to, you know, get into training that would help kind of mold me into a real estate salesperson. And so it was important to go with a firm who, one, was reputable in the city, and two, provided that training for me on a consistent basis. And so from the beginning, I looked for places and firms that provided training, not just recruited me and like, oh, you know, come work for our office and you're going to be a millionaire. I need that training and that support, because I am the type of person that asks a lot of questions. So I want to make sure I had the managing broker support. Are they accessible? Is it someone I can like walk into their office and say, hey, what do you think about this price? What do you think about this contract? How do I negotiate this? So that was really important to me. I think just to jump forward a little bit, for me, I was recruited from Keller Williams to Compass a little late in my career. Again, there's not a lot of recruiting that happens in New York City, only because you can't really, pull up numbers to see how much somebody sells, or how much volume they produce. So it's kind of just, oh, I know this agent just got her license. Let's put her on a drip campaign, or let's put her in our CRM, follow up with her every year, every 2 years, see what she's doing. So I would notice a pattern, and it was probably about every 2 years, 1.5 to 2 years, where the same firm reached out to me like, oh, how are you doing in your career? What's going on? I see that you had this recent listing. This is great. Are you still with a team? Are you solo? So it's just a lot of like tracking, I guess, for recruiters. But yeah, did that answer your question? I feel like it's a lot.
No, this is all great information.
Yeah.
Why don't we touch on one more question here that I'll ask, and then we'll open it up to the audience here.
We've got a couple questions.
Yeah, we've been focusing on calls. Obviously, our system and other systems, of course, ours is best. You can email, you can text as well. So do those approaches work at least to help get an initial call set up? Or do you just, how do you see that avenue of trying to reach out for recruiting? Eddie,
yeah. So
Christina, go ahead.
Yeah.
Sure. So for me, I do like the call or text option. I like when they call. I prefer call over text just because it's quicker and I can hear the person versus reading what they're saying. I think going back to Eddie's comment that he made earlier about the energy, if I hear that energy over the phone, it's something that I may engage a little bit more in the conversation versus just a text message. Again, if you're going to text me and it says, how many homes have you sold in the last year? We do not refer to real estate apartments as homes. We refer to them as units. So off the bat, I'm just like, I don't sell homes. We don't sell real property. We sell walls. So if you're going to text me and say, how many homes have you sold? It's automatic, stop. I'll text back and say stop so I can disconnect her. Or, yeah. But I prefer a call. I'm open to, hearing and talking to people on the other line, whether it's a few minutes and just like, hey, do you have a few minutes to chat? If I get a good vibe from you and good energy, then I'll say yes. If not, I may say, oh, call me back later. And maybe later you'll come back with more energy.
So that sounds like phone calls you're receptive to. Now, when I'm sure you get email and newsletter blasts and things like that from people, do you open those? Do you find value in those? Do you look at what other companies are sending you ever?
I think depending on where I'm at in my career, I think similar to Eddie, when I was starting a team, I would be open to those emails only because I wanted to see what other recruiters were sending, so I can, I can use that information, tailor it myself, and recruit somebody for my team. So
nice.
That's pretty much the extent. That's pretty much the extent of what I would use that for. I think nowadays, right now in this market where I'm at, I really don't open emails. I unsubscribe quite often to those generic emails that come in my inbox.
Nice to see phone calls making a resurgence. They've been around forever.
Yeah, I think they're super effective. I don't know why people don't pick up the phone and call.
It's what the real estate business is built on. I mean, we've all seen
100%.
Glengarry Glen Ross when Jack Lemmon's pumping quarters into the machine, and they used to do it from phone booths. I mean, I love it. Yeah, awesome.
Yeah,
anyway, Eddie, what's that?
Oh, I love calling. I'm a cold call queen. I lead gen every evening 9 to 12. Phone call. So
love it.
If you've got questions you want us to ask, just type them in the chat box. I know we have one gentleman here, I believe, said, what resources and opportunities are most important to hear about from a recruiter?
Do you want to hear about leads? Do you want to hear about office culture? Do you want to hear about
But
Market
and
share.
maybe it depends on where you are in your career. You might want to hear about
Yeah.
training versus marketing. So what are some key buzzwords, let's say for you specifically, and then maybe when you guys were newly minted agent, those buzzwords were different. What did you want to hear?
I think every time I considered a move, it was because I was looking for growth. So, so either the first time I made a move, it was about, and oh, you're gonna make more money per deal. But then, as a new agent, as a solo agent, yeah, it sounded nice to make 100% commission and have a small monthly fee. But as a new agent, I didn't have the experience to have a consistent flow of that 100%, right? So the team environment as a new agent was, I think, better because I soon realized, okay, well, let's make 50% of 30 deals versus 100% of 5, right? So and after that, that's when went to the team environment. So I think growth. Every time I've considered a move, it's because I'm looking for growth, or I'm looking for something, for a better environment or whatnot as well.
Looking for where things are happening, growth, things are going on, not an office where everybody's standing around counting everybody else's commissions, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Christina?
I have to agree. Yeah, I agree with Eddie. Thinking back again, I've only made a change four times in my career, and the first 3 times were all for growth. It's because I was either on a team and I felt like I was, being pigeoned because it was very much stay in your lane. And at the beginning, I'm like, okay, I've learned how to be a buyer's agent for the last year and a half. I want to learn the rest of the business. So it's always been about growth. I think now if I were to get a call from a recruiter, it would have to be something more along the lines of like leadership, or not saying that I want to go into leadership within like Keller Williams, but more of just, leading a team and generating leads for my team, not me doing all the phone calls, generating my own business. But growth is something that's important. And also training. I love script practice. I can't tell you how much I love lead gen. It's the core of the business. And so learning new techniques, learning persuasive language, learning tie downs, those types of keywords is really important for me, someone who's on the phone 24/7, constantly lead genning. If I hear those types of buzzwords like, oh, let's discuss scripts, or let's do a script practice, those are buzzwords that are attractive for me.
Nice.
Right.
Great input. Awesome. Good stuff. We had another question about something there that popped up, or no?
Someone was asking, there's no MLS in New York. Why don't they have it there? I don't know how that, I guess
They've got something
there.
Yeah, that we work off an RLS system. I think we're underneath the Real Estate Board of New York, and so they just do things much differently in New York. We don't have, I think an MLS, if I understand correctly, is like you can log on there and pull comps and pull data.
Right.
Yeah, we don't have that in New York City. We go through third parties who create, they're like tech companies who pull the data for us, and then we pay them, and then they give us data. We don't use like Realtor.com. We don't use Trulia or Zillow. We don't use any of those platforms. So it's just very different out here.
Here's a interesting question, and a good one. So what is the first question you ask when a managing broker calls you and tries to recruit you?
How much is it? No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Christina?
What's the first question I asked? That's good. That's a good question. I guess for me, it was probably, I think it probably was, who are you, and do you sell real estate yourself? So, you're
Right.
calling me, you're asking me this question, do you sell real estate, or are you just the, the call center person?
So do you find it more attractive if the broker in charge of an office is still selling, or if he's a non-competing broker then?
For me, it really doesn't matter. I'm indifferent to both. I feel like if they're, at that level, they probably have had many, many years experience selling. So it doesn't really matter.
Cool.
Eddie, you got a question you asked?
Well, for me, I didn't get recruited this last time. I actually reached out to my managing broker and I said, "Hey, I'm coming over. You're gonna take me?" So I came over because of my relationship with Al, and so good terms. I went and did my thing, tried my deal, and it just made sense to come back to work with him. And I loved the company after, but it was all about the relationship with him first.
It's interesting that you mentioned that, because my move that just happened last year, I actually reached back out to the original brokerage I was at as well. So maybe it's like a trend for seasoned agents. So
let's see. Let's go with a few more questions here. So at what productivity level or years of experience did you stop taking as many calls from recruiters? And at what point in your career did you decide you were just not as open to moving as you once were? Because again, kind of like Eddie, he's like, I made my own recruiting decision and I went over here. Is there a level of production or a number of years in the industry where you're just like, I'm making up my own mind. I don't want to hear at all from a recruiter?
Well, for me, it was about 6 years into it. I stopped listening to recruiters because I was doing my own brokerage, right? But then I was getting recruited from like different what would you call it? Franchises, I guess. At that point, so at that point it was not as an agent, right? It was more as a kind of as a brokerage. But around 6 years, I think, is when I stopped. But I guess it depends on where you're in the career, right? I think now, the thing that made sense here was kind of like Christina says, I could, if I want to be a leader and recreate what I had in another team and whatnot, I can do that here. So the opportunities, I think, is what would be enticing to me at this point, right? But I'm not looking to move anytime soon. I'll be here for a while.
Christina, was there a stage, or are you still out there looking for opportunities? If not looking, but if something were to just grab you, would you still be open to it?
Yeah.
I guess.
So I think, I guess 2 answers. At the very beginning, I was very loyal to where I was at, the brokerage firm I was at, the team I was with. Everything worked. And I was fortunate to have been a part of a great team that really helped me understand the market, helped me understand the industry. And so I didn't take any recruiting calls. I didn't, even entertain any emails that came through. It was probably closer to like the 2-year mark that I'm like, okay, I'm ready for a change. I felt like I was ready for that growth that Eddie speaks about. So for me, it was more of just the timing. It was 2 years. And then I stayed with the next firm I went with for about 2.5 years. So I feel like it's kind of been a trend for me every 2 years. I feel like I'm in a place of change. But to answer your question, right now, I feel the same as Eddie. Like, I love where I'm at. My clients know where I'm at. They know where to reach me. Everything seems to work. I can't see myself moving now for, I guess in the next 3 to 5 years. I can't see it.
Got it. All right. How about one more question here, and then don't you all log off yet, because Rob and I want to talk about our next podcast. We have another guest, and we want our panelists to have some closing remarks. So the last question I'll pull here is, you both had teams or have teams at this point. So what is the best way to recruit a team leader along with their team over to a new office?
Charm. Personality and charm and caring and asking. Anyway, sorry. Go ahead, Christina.
So for me, I feel like my New York mannerism is going to come out with this answer, but
Nice.
you you have to be, and I'm one person, but you have to be like a replica of me when it comes to managing, time management, organization, follow up. You have to do what I do, and you have to think ahead of what I'm thinking. If you can't do that, then you're not going to sit in my seat and lead my team, because I have worked too hard to recruit my team, put together, people that I work with, and have a well-oiled functioning machine. So for me, not to sound boastful, but like, you have to be able to do what I do on a daily basis. And if not, do it better. And, teach me something. You just have to be on top of it for me. And if you're not, like, get out of here. We have other things to do. So I guess to recruit someone like that, follow me around, walk a day in my shoes, walk a week in my shoes. If you can keep up and you're not, sweating your I can't say cuss words here, but if you're not sweating your butt off at the end of the day off walking, 6 flights of stairs, and you still want to continue, then you may be a fit, but you have to walk a week in my shoes. And if you can keep up, then we'll have that conversation.
Amazing answer. Amazing
Eddie?
answer. Thank you, Christine.
Every time that I had the team, it was for better splits to be, just cold, raw. When I had the team and we left Remax and we did our own franchise, it was just strictly, you know what, let's do our own brand. Let's stop paying these franchise fees and this and that. And for me, it was just raw, cold. It was, what's better for our team? Can the team leader make more? The owners make more, and that trickles down to the employees, and they make more money and we make more money. So for me, in my experience, it was all about, does this make me more money? And is it beneficial for my team, right? Because the environment that we created for our team, we could take that anywhere. So that, to me, it was dollar signs. Is it going to create me and my team more money?
Perfect.
Yeah.
It's business, man.
All right,
we're all in business.
Mm-hmm.
We're 40 minutes into our call, so let us just have some closing comments from our two great panelists. And again, thank you. Big round of applause. I can't thank you enough for participating.
Yes, thank you, guys. Yes.
And our goal is to lift the whole industry up here. So let's have a couple of closing comments, and then Rob and I want to announce who we are going to have in our next podcast.
Sounds good.
Eddie, you want to start? Because we started with Christina at the introduction. So why don't you start off the closing comment?
I guess I don't know how to prepare a closing comment, but I appreciate being on your podcast. I appreciate you guys.
Thanks for coming.
Yeah, thank you for considering me as a top producer and having me on your show. I appreciate you guys wanting to hear about my career, and yeah, to everybody listening, I appreciate you guys giving me the time.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming on. Thanks, Eddie. Thank you. And
So,
Christina, you're on the spot. All right, let's get some more good answers here before.
How do I follow that? Like, oh my gosh, I didn't have anything prepared.
Thank you for coming on and doing an amazing job.
Yes,
Thank you.
No, thank you guys for having me. It's always 40 minutes has passed by. I didn't even know it was 40 minutes. I love talking about real estate. I love what I do. For me, to be honest, like, just this conversation and this podcast right now really kind of had my wheels thinking, like, am I in a good place where I'm at? I said I don't see myself moving for 3 to 5 years. I feel like that's true, but I always have to evaluate where I'm at. So I think for me, this, kind of like encouraged me in a different way, just to kind of look where I'm at right now, where I want to be in 60, 90 days. And it was nice. I appreciate the questions and just talking about the market and where we got started. It's been quite the journey. So it's been interesting. It's been a wild ride, but I wouldn't change it for anything.
Thank you.
Amazing. Awesome.
All right, Rob, why don't you announce our next guest for the next podcast, and we'll wrap it up.
For sure. Yeah, we'll wrap it up. And anybody who's got extra questions and things like that, Paul's going to put my email in the chat right now and our schedule and things like that while I'm talking about that. So that, free consultation with Pro Broker Agency. We work with Realty Connection, all that kind of stuff. We're here to help you recruit. So our next guest, I'm super pumped about. Obviously, we had some great chats today with our two panelists today. And hopefully we can have them back again and maybe get more in depth with some other stuff. But next month, we're going to have Judy Ledour join us from Judy Ledour International, who's a famous recruiting coach. I actually met Judy Ledour back in 2008 when I used to recruit for Remax, and I was sent to Denver for a recruiting thing, where I think I'd already recruited 20 people in the first 4 months of the year. But Judy and I really resonated and became friends, and so we're really excited to have her on the podcast next month because we're going to talk more about scripting and things to do like when you're putting together your outreach, because she's such an expert at that. Obviously, we've got an agency, we do outreach already, but sometimes that really helps people, especially if you're going to be starting to use a service like ours or like Paul's, and you have someone handling the calls, the appointments at your office. Having the right scripting and the right pieces in place and maybe a little coaching can really help those appointments turn into recruits. And so we're going to get into that in the next podcast.
Perfect. So, yep, that sounds great. Make sure I got your email in the chat box correct. Rob, take a look at it. I
can't see it, but it's rob@theprobroker.com. I
got it right. So, all right. Well, everyone, thanks again for participating. Stay cool. Have a great week. And we'll see you at the next podcast. Thank you all.
Thanks for tuning
Bye,
in.
guys.
Thank you very much, Eddie. And thanks, Christina. Thanks, guys.
You're welcome.
See you, Paul.
Guys.
See ya.
Bye.